Good morning. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I am the president of the Geochemical Society, and this is nervousness will do things to your memory. This is Dominique Wise. She's the vice president of the Geochemical Society, and it is our pleasure to present the Society's honors to several accomplished scientists today. Their inspiring achievements cover a wide range of disciplines within geochemistry. Our scientific community is both diverse and vibrant, and the GS seeks to recognize a wide range of excellence with our awards. To ensure that we have many excellent candidates, we need you to submit nominations to help us. So this is the call for nominations for next year's awards. Please look left, look right, and think of who you know who's an excellent scientist. If you need help writing an award nomination, I am happy to reply to those emails. So we need you to, each nomination is considered with equal attention and each one has a chance of success. We sincerely ask you to consider recognizing the achievements of a colleague with a nomination for next year's awards. So I'd like to move on and announce this year's recipients. First, I'd like to announce the F.W. Clark Award. The Clark Award honors a single outstanding contribution to geochemistry or cosmochemistry by an early career scientist. The medal is named for Frank Wigglesworth Clark, a chemist who lived from 1847 to 1931 and did pioneering work to explain the chemical composition of the Earth's crust. This year, the medal is presented to Suzanne Berner, Associate Professor of Geology and Earth Science at Berea College. Professor Berner is recognized for her series of papers that decipher and document the processes occurring in the Earth's mantle that have generated variations on several orders of magnitude in oxygen fugacity. These have broad implications for the history of the Earth's interior and atmosphere. Please join me in congratulating Professor Berner on receiving the 2025 F.W. Clark Award. Next, we have the Claire C. Patterson Award, which is presented for an innovative breakthrough in environmental geochemistry of fundamental significance within the last decade, particularly in service to society. Claire Patterson had a remarkable career during which he developed the uranium-lead dating method, and he also played a major role in raising awareness of the dangers of lead contamination in the environment. This year's recipient of the medal in his honor is Avner Vengosh, Distinguished Professor of Environmental Quality at Duke University. Professor Vengosh is recognized for his work evaluating the impact of conventional and non-conventional energy development on environmental geochemistry, especially of water resources. For these remarkable accomplishments, the GS is delighted to present Avner Vengosh with a 2025 Claire Patterson Award. The GS Organic Geochemistry Division presents the Alfred Tribes Award for major achievements over a period of years in organic geochemistry. Alfred Tribes' legacy includes his classic papers on porphyrins that established that these compounds were a degradation product of chlorophyll. This was a foundational discovery for this important subdiscipline of geochemistry. I'm very fond of this subdiscipline. And we are pleased to present the 2024 Tribes Award to Timothy Eglinton, full professor at the Department of Earth Sciences, ETH Zurich. He is recognized for his achievements in compound-specific radiocarbon analysis and for examining the production, transport, transportation, and burial of organic matter at the Earth's surface. This work has strongly influenced the field of organic geochemistry and other disciplines. Please join me in congratulating Professor Eglinton as he receives the Alfred Tribes Award. Next, we present the Society's highest honor, the Victor Moritz Goldschmidt Award. Named for the scientist who is considered the founder of our field. His classification of the behavior of elements in the earth and meteorites laid the basis of modern geochemistry. The Goldschmidt Award is presented annually for major achievements in geochemistry over a career. This year we recognize the remarkable achievements of Chris Hawksworth, Professor Emeritus at the University of Bristol. Professor Hawksworth is recognized for exceptional scientific contributions made through the application of advanced geochemical proxies that have guided our understanding of the crust and lithosphere and their interactions with the convecting mantle. His work has helped transform geochemistry by emphasizing its applicability to understanding the processes operating over the entirety of the Earth's existence. We congratulate Chris Hawksworth on this well-deserved honor, the 2025 Victor Moritz Goldschmidt Award. Okay. Thanks for your attention. Now I would like to invite Yoshio Takahashi, President of the Geochemical Society of Japan, to come forward. He will be presenting the Geochemical Society of Japan's awards. Take it away.
Thank you very much for EAG and GS to have this opportunity to hold this ceremony. Today I would like to, the Geochemical Journal, today, I have to do this. Today I would like to have a ceremony to give a Geochemical Journal Award of our society. So this year the award goes to Yuki Inoue, who gave an award lecture this morning. But before introducing him, I would like to briefly introduce our society and Geochemical Journal. Our society was founded 72 years ago, and one of our founder, Professor Minami, collaborated with Professor Goldschmidt about rare sediment in shales in 1930s. We hope to contribute to this field in the future, and we are particularly pleased to organize Goldschmidt 2028 in Tokyo in collaboration with the Geochemical Society and the European Association of Geochemistry. Regarding the Geochemical Journal, our journal was completely renewed in 2022 and has become a fully open access journal, and we welcome all of you to submit your paper as we strive to minimize publication time after the submission. We have published a wide range of the papers from the isotope geochemistry, trace element geochemistry, the dating method, and core composition, and the cosmochemistry and environmental geochemistry. So we hope that any topic will be welcome in our journal. We have been selecting the best paper every year, and this winner receives 100,000 yen, although the Japanese yen has become very weak. And this year, the award was given to Yuki Inoue. He is the second student recipient in our history, and we are very pleased to award this prize to a young person like him with a promising future. So I would like to welcome Yuki, and also I would like to ask the executive editor, Professor Suzuki, to give this award. So please, here. Okay, we have 3 items. First is a certificate. And that's second is a plate with gold surface. And finally, with Japanese money. So, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Okay, hello everybody. For those of you who couldn't be at the plenary yesterday, I'm Martin Whitehouse. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Science and Organizing Committees for this year's Goldschmidt meeting. One of our most rewarding and enjoyable tasks is that we get to introduce some of our distinguished plenary lecturers. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from, in a few moments, from Tanja Bosak. A little bit of a CV. Tanja graduated from Zagreb University in Croatia with a BS in geophysics, and she followed that with a PhD in geobiology from Caltech. So if there's any geophysicists out there who are looking for inspiration to switch fields, talk to Tanja. After a postdoc in Harvard, she moved to MIT in 2007, where she's been ever since, and she's currently professor of geobiology there, running a very successful laboratory and group. Her research focuses on the way microbial processes impart chemical, mineralogical, and morphological signals in sedimentary rocks, both in Earth's deep time and potentially on Mars. She's received honors and awards that are too numerous to list here, but I want to at least highlight two of these. Her Subaru Outstanding Woman in Science Award from the GSA. I think Subaru could see the four-wheel drive rover market on Mars coming here. And also her McElwain Medal from the AGU, of which she's also a fellow. She's a member of the NASA's Mars Project Science Group and the Return Sample Science Team. And in that context, today she's going to tell us about her exciting research on Martian carbonates detected by the Perseverance rover. Tanja, please come onto the stage.
Let me just find the cursor. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to the organizers at this time of great scientific uncertainty in the US. It's wonderful to be here in an international setting and think about really questions that unite us all as humans, which are how life began, whether life was perhaps present on other planets in the solar system or elsewhere in the universe. And while I won't be talking about the universe today, I will take you to our closest planetary neighbor and tell you about the fascinating opportunity to start addressing these questions by sampling rock samples by this amazing rover that we've had. And this is clearly a team effort, and I would like to thank members. These are only some members of the team. There are hundreds of them. And here is an image of this really ambitious project to collect about 30-odd samples from the surface of Mars from a known geological context, and then an even more ambitious plan that is still in the development to bring those samples to Earth. These are pencil-sized samples that would be available to the broad scientific community to analyze, using all the fancy instruments that we are seeing here and all the fancy instruments and methods that all of you are developing and that are yet to be developed. So my talk today will really consist of two major parts. The first one will be to tell you why even go to Mars to search for life, ancient life or the origins of life. And then I will tell you more about these minerals and how we can hope to search for life or evidence of habitable environments in minerals that are probably familiar to a lot of you here as records of paleo temperatures, paleo environments, and also quite good preservers of biosignatures. And they're so common on Earth, but they're actually quite rare on Mars. And so it is these carbonates that will be the focus of today's talk. So when we think about life, and in particular its early beginnings and its origin, there are two major camps that one can start learning about. One was inspired by the discovery of hydrothermal vents, and this is really set of theories that concern not so much the origin of cellular life, but the origin of metabolisms. Fascinated by the wonderful chemistry at hydrothermal vents, where these fluids spewing out of the vents, driven by tectonic processes on Earth, are reducing. They produce a lot of hydrogen, which is a really yummy molecule for life, for a lot of microbial processes, and they really wonder how the mineral surfaces, transition metals, can catalyze the synthesis of quite simple organics that are known to fuel some microbial metabolisms. That doesn't really necessarily tell us about life's origins, and there's another camp that actually considers a set of reactions that produce compounds that build cells. So lipids, so you can think of it as combinatorial chemistry that uses some basic feedstocks that will be present on planetary surfaces, early planetary surfaces, and makes a set of chemistries that require surface conditions, so evaporation, concentration of compounds, UV light, also even meteorite impacts to recycle some of these feedstock molecules. And actually this area of research has gained a lot of traction in the past 20 years. And it's more exciting to us geologists who actually deal with surface rocks, because as you can see from this set of cartoons, it deals with surface environments that contain some water and environments we can hope to really find a record of, which is why we want to go to Mars and look for those types of environments. Now, all of this is nice, but if we look at the rock record on Earth, our planet is not cooperating. It is tectonically active. It's had an active water cycle for billions of years. And so if you're to look for evidence, maybe of early hydrothermal vents or of little ponds that would have fueled some chemistries that would build cells, soon enough we just run into the problem of no rocks that are old enough. And as far as we can go back to the rock record that would be likely to preserve organic compounds or even harbor early cells, this is the timeline that I like to show. So if we are talking about billions of years, the earliest record of sedimentary rocks already stores evidence of actually life, so not prebiotic reactions. So it goes back to about 3.5, 3.4 billion years ago. And this is what this record looks like. So we go to silica-rich environments and we find evidence of microbial films that were bent, something that was flexible and bent and carbon-rich, these organics preserved. And we also can go to carbonates, carbonate rocks that look like this. So while they don't preserve beautiful organic microbial films, they can be microbially shaped. In particular, these cones gave indications, and actually we understand quite a bit about their textures and their macroscopic shapes. These are rocks you can really hit in the field and see them. We understand that there was microbial input to their formation. And this is all nice and good. Carbonates here also provide quite a bit of environmental information about the cations that were present, about the pH, about, if you're lucky enough, maybe even paleotemperatures. Now, this is where it also ends. If you're to look for something that is earlier, you have to go elsewhere. And that elsewhere is a different planet, which is Mars. And here is just a quick summary of why. So if you look at the surface age of Earth, so again, we have a time scale. Here is 4 billion years ago, here is present. And the average surface age of surface environments on Earth is actually, in the big scheme of things, if you're interested in the origins of life, quite young. So you're not really likely to find rocks that are older than 3.5 billion years. And good luck if you're looking for sedimentary rocks, which are beat up and hard to reconstruct. And Mars is quite the opposite. You can see that there are quite a few rocks that are older, so good news. If you look for minerals, such as carbonates, that precipitate from water or are derived from interactions with water with igneous minerals, the Earth has had really a long record of those types of minerals, whereas on Mars, this record is restricted to the early part of its history. So we know there was more water on its surface. Then if you look at the record of water, the Earth has had an active hydrosphere for as far back as we can look, meaning a really thick atmosphere that has kept it warm for really throughout its history, whereas Mars has a record of water at the surface really early on, so this would be the surface water, and today most water, if present, is thought to be quite deep down, so groundwater, but that surface record early on implies that there must have been a thick atmosphere that kept early Mars warm at least periodically or episodically. And so there are a lot of questions about perhaps the most massive climate change that a planet experienced, because if you think about modern-day Mars and the picture I showed, it's dead. It is where one would send things to die. It is dead, it's salty, it's cold. So when did all these processes keep Mars warm? And if you notice, these processes happened right at the time when life may have been starting, and prebiotic chemical reactions may have been starting. And here's just to show you the evidence. So this is something, this early history of Mars being wetter, perhaps not all that much warmer, came from orbital images of, so this is a Viking image from the 70s, and you see this old terrain. You see craters upon craters upon craters. Some of these craters have eroded surfaces, meaning they are very old. That's how we date these surfaces. And you see evidence of channels, and some of these channels, so for example, this one, drains into a crater, a topographic depression, and a lot of these craters actually end up containing the channels and evidence of sediments being delivered and past water being delivered by these channels in these old terrains. So we knew we wanted to explore that more, and for example, our sister mission, Curiosity, that's been operating for more than a decade very successfully on the surface of one such crater, Gale Crater on Mars, actually landed on a conglomerate, sedimentary rocks, and other landed missions revealed plentiful evidence for not just the past presence of water, but sedimentary rocks deposited by flowing water, sedimentary rocks deposited even into a lake, such as in Gale Crater. So these fine lacustrine mudstones, and even some organics. And so wouldn't it be nice to go and sample similar rocks somewhere? And this thinking motivated the whole Perseverance rover mission and the whole Mars sample return campaign. And Jezero Crater that formed about 3.8 billion years ago, take these with a grain of salt. The geochronology of Mars is based on crater counts, and contained perhaps a lake at 3.7 billion years ago, was chosen because of this past evidence for past water. And here's the evidence. You see this crater, it's about 45 kilometers across. There is an inflow channel here, and there is even, at some point, the crater is thought to have contained a lake that breached another channel where the water flowed out. So at least at some point in its history, there was evidence for an open lake system. Now, this may not have been a very continuous system, but we also have evidence for this fan, this apron here, that is full of sediments that must have been delivered by some water flowing right here from this inflow channel. So that all motivated the preliminary selection of Jezero Crater as as one of the potential landing sites for Perseverance. But what really nailed it, what really made it win over other potential sites, was mineralogical evidence of orbital measurements or detections of minerals that are either carbonates precipitated from water or clay minerals. And so when you look at this color map, these are false colors just to tell you where orbitally these minerals are detected. All of these green to blue areas contain carbonate and olivine. So strong carbonate signal. Remember, I told you carbonates are rare on Mars. Yet here, this signal is quite prominent. And there are a lot of other igneous minerals in other parts, but these carbonates extend along the margin of what could have been a lake in this crater, and are also present in some parts of the fan. And when you see this association of carbonate and olivine, both quite strong signals in this area, this is probably very familiar. I just went to a session on carbon sequestration yesterday. This is probably old news to people who study rocks that look like this, that are very rich in olivine. So all of these green minerals here are olivine, and that mineral loves water, especially at the surface. It binds it, if at the surface, it also can bind some CO2 to produce carbonates. And a slew of other minerals, such as serpentine or clay minerals, depending on the conditions. And when olivine contains iron, this was also even better news for past life, because iron can oxidize, and the byproduct of that reaction is hydrogen. And remember, that is a yummy, yummy molecule to a lot of microbial metabolisms. So we were excited to go and explore this association and look at the carbonates. And our expectation, based on the orbital signals, was, and this is just based on pure analogy with various minerals analyzed on Earth, the spectra of what was detected on Mars matched the spectra of hydrated magnesium carbonates the best. And so this area here, this margin, we just expected this to contain hydrated magnesium carbonates. Now, I'm laying out these expectations because this is a discovery mission. And so it's nice to go in with some expectations, but it's also interesting to see how wrong we were. So keep in mind, we're expecting hydrated magnesium carbonates, and we also could, based on this association with olivine and the expected hydrology of the system, so this is the expectation, predict, given that we are landing and we'll be able to explore these minerals, make some predictions about what these carbonates would look like. And there are two end-member scenarios. In one, involving very dry surface conditions and maybe some groundwater table, if this denotes carbonates, this brownish color, carbonate may precipitate only in pores and fractures. So this groundwater table reaches some olivine-rich or other rocks and interact with the minerals in there and precipitate just really localized carbonate deposits. Whereas under wetter surface conditions, we would expect some regional weather, regional climate, the weathering of the surrounding terrains, the delivery of cations, magnesium, iron, perhaps calcium, into a standing body of water. And we would predict just texturally and depositionally different types of carbonates. So we could predict even some carbonate grains in the lake sediments on the floor. We could predict pore water carbonates in that fan, the sedimentary fan, which is largely siliciclastic. And of course, the groundwater table could still do what it does with the rock in the subsurface. Now, these two different scenarios have different, and depositional environments have different predictions of what carbon we are sampling. Because if we are hoping to sample carbon from a previously thicker atmosphere, surface carbonates, pore water carbonates, carbonate grains have a better chance to record those types of conditions. Whereas underground carbonates, we may not really be seeing the surface and understanding what the climate was doing. All right, so these are some of the expectations, and it is this weather scenario that really sparked the imagination, combined with the distribution of carbonates along the margin of Jezero Crater, and people likened that scenario to some modern deposits of magnesium carbonates, hydromagnesite, hydrated magnesium carbonate, in ultramafic terrain, such as Lake Salda, Turkey, where all of this white material that surrounds the lake, in areas where there's a lot of evaporation, This is exactly where these carbonates precipitate. So, oh, wouldn't it be nice to even see, maybe we can hope for some microbialites, because all of these buildups that you're looking at here are actually microbially precipitated. So we had a lot of hopes and expectations when we went to Jezero Crater, and I hope this told you why we wanted to sample Mars, given the great age of Jezero Crater and the great age of aqueous activity in there. We had the potential to really sample this really missing piece of history in the history of life and understand whether there may be organic reactions or even cellular life elsewhere, and understand the climate history of Mars. So we landed in 2020 with this amazing instrument, this amazing rover, piece of technology that has a lot of cameras, because you need to take pictures of Mars. So it has really more than, these are just only some cameras that are marked. And it has a laser ablation system that tells us about the compositions of rocks that we drive by. But it also has this proximity science on the rover arm, where we actually have 2 Raman spectrometers on the rover, one Sherlock, one on SuperCam. We have Pixel, which is the instrument that is an X-ray. It produces X-ray maps of elements on abraded surfaces. We have an abrasion tool, and probably the most important instrument, the coring drill. And so here is just this coring drill in action. This is, I believe this was a sedimentary rock that the rover drilled. We've drilled almost 30 such rocks now. This is what the bottom of a core looks like. These are pencil thin, just to give you the sense of dimension and the pencil size. So miniaturization is the operative word. So we landed in 2020 here. This is the crater floor, and started moving around the crater floor, spent a year there, went up the fan, spent some time, actually another year, analyzing the oldest sedimentary rocks that we saw, and started climbing up the fan, analyzed the rocks on there, and went to the margin, where we spent another year analyzing the rocks here. So this is that area that showed up as very carbonate-rich from the orbit, and now the rover is actually out of the crater, analyzing even older terrains that are outside. And all of these little balloons that have symbols in them mean that we took a core at all these places. And that traverse helped us sample various orbitally defined units with various ages. The crater floor, this what we call the olivine carbonate part of the crater floor, the fan, the margin, and now these older parts. And so this, I hope, gives you the idea of the sedimentary, of the geological context. So we have a variety of units, variety of ages from known places on Mars. And we can now start reconstructing the story if we only got the samples back. So where did we detect carbonates? It was nice to verify that margin, so here's the marginal part, indeed contained a lot of carbonate. But all of these green symbols now tell you where we detected carbonates, which is almost everywhere, even in areas where orbital measurements did not indicate much carbonate or any carbonate whatsoever. And that included the crater floor. Now here was another surprise. I was showing those cartoons of a lake and lake sediments, and we landed on the crater floor. We were hoping for fine-grained mudstones, just like what Curiosity had seen. But lo and behold, the crater floor turned out to be igneous. And the evidence for that, it took a while for us to understand what we were looking at. And the evidence for that, really, the conclusive evidence for that, came from pixel maps such as this one. So pixel, you can see this is a scale bar of 3 millimeters. So you're almost getting a thin section, a map at this scale of elemental compositions. And you can see the entire grains. All of these orange grains here are olivine. And so I think Some of you in the audience may recognize this already as olivine cumulate. There are some pyroxene-rich areas and the red, iron, magnesium carbonates. Carbonates that contain exactly the cations that are present in the olivine crystals. What that tells us is that while these rocks are igneous, there was some igneous activity on Mars. These rocks had seen some water, interacted with subsurface fluids that created localized precipitation. This olivine reacted, and there are carbonates in veins and fractures. Then we started exploring the fan front, the oldest sedimentary rocks in the crater. And now here, these are additional pixel maps of a rock that we sampled. This was a sandstone. You can even see the grains popping out from these types of rocks. And when you see the elemental maps, the way we look for carbonates here, so this is really the same area image with different elements plotted. What we look for are areas that have low silica and aluminum and high magnesium and iron. And so, for example, here, these will be the teal, the light blue areas. And while you see grains that are they had some igneous minerals as precursors. Some of them seem to have had olivine as precursors. They are coated in cements. They have these pore cements that are made of carbonate. Again, iron magnesium carbonate. No real hydration, and again, the composition of this carbonate seems to, again, match what we see in the local olivine. And then we move to the margin, and so this was a story over and over and over again as we went along and up the fan. And then we came to the margin, and this was one of the first rocks we looked at the margin. And here, so you have iron and you have magnesium, similar scale, and all of these greenish yellow areas are actual carbonate grains. So we have a whole slew of different types of carbonate faces, and they are actually surrounded by silica. So to summarize, we did not find hydrated magnesium carbonates in most of these deposits. Most of what we found were iron magnesium carbonates. There are no stromatolites, in spite of my hopes. And if you're wondering about biosignatures or really the potential of these rocks to preserve organic matter, our instrument payload did not detect any organic signals associated with these carbonates. And this is what they look like. So they're pretty flat. You do not see conical stromatolites. You don't see microbialite mounds. It's really just this is maybe 20, 30 centimeters across, these plates, maybe 50. And everything is flat and everything is grainy. So this is the bottom of a core that we sampled here, and you can see the same grains, even with your naked eye here. So we're talking about a lot of carbonate-rich sandstone. And in all of these sandstones, in a lot of them actually, we even detected olivine grains that are almost untouched by water. So to go back to the idea of this connection between olivine and carbonate, while we do have carbonate that was produced most likely from some olivine precursor, the water activity, given that we have entire olivine grains preserved in these sedimentary rocks oftentimes, does suggest that the water activity was not prolonged, and at least in the rocks that we sampled. And the exciting part about these rocks is that these are surface deposits. These are rocks from the sedimentary fan. These are sediments that were rolling on the surface of Mars, and while the carbonates could be in pore waters, they certainly were seeing some CO2 that was close to the atmosphere or in the shallow subsurface. And so what that tells us is that the surface conditions were mostly habitable. Short water activity. We certainly have also sampled in those igneous rocks some evidence of, we don't know what temperatures those carbonates formed at. We don't know anything about the fluids. This is really the reason to bring these samples back. But we've also sampled a lot of carbonates that have the potential to record former surface or shallow subsurface conditions. And that tells us that Jezero maybe did not contain, and the whole region maybe did not contain as much water as we would hope for a really permanent clement lake that would host life. Who knows? I think this is, I hope your scientific antennae are tingling as to the potential of these samples to be analyzed and really reveal the stories that they hold. But for astrobiology, which is my neck of the woods, we certainly would love to use them. We have samples from the margin, we have samples from the crater floor, juicy geochronology, juicy geochemistry to be done to start addressing this early time in planetary history and to start understanding, really just to section them and look for any evidence of potential fossils, of potential organic matter that could not be detected by our instruments, which don't have very high sensitivity. We can start answering the questions of how long the lake in Jezero was there, and also why the climate on Mars changed. But, and this is just an aside, as for me as an astrobiologist, I kept saying we are hoping for mudstones. We always look for something that has very, if we are to look for evidence of past cellular life, we want to sample rocks that have finer grain size than the microbes that they could be sampling. And we also want to sample rocks that formed quite fast, and we also want to sample rocks that maybe smothered some organic material that was present. Now, those sandstones I was showing you are not ideal for that. Sandstones are very porous, so a lot of fluid can flow, remove any organics, and certainly squash and destroy cells. So I think in terms of analogs that we study for systems on Mars, perhaps these microbialites and lake shorelines are not the best ones, but I think not all is lost because, for example, a former graduate student, Matt Baldes, went to Lake Salda and looked at the atypical phases that we usually discount when looking for evidence of microbes building rocks. And so he looked at carbonate veins in these ultramafic rocks, so here is a vein. He looked at crusts that coat entire cobbles, so really coarse-grained sediment on the lake shoreline, all of this really whitish stuff, and sand grains that are in the terraces around the lake, hoping to match carbonate sand that we see in Jezero. And good news is that both crust and sand can preserve biosignatures, both organic and morphological, whereas veins did not seem to really form under conditions that harbored a lot of microbes and preserved signals of their processes. So I'll just end with the status update. Most carbonates that I told you about in Jezero Crater contain both magnesium and iron as major cations, so reduced iron. They're not hydrated, and they tend to occur with olivine in the very same samples and on the very same abrasion patches or with alteration products of olivine, which may explain why we're seeing so much carbonate in Jezero Crater. And most of the sampled carbonates, except for the ones on the crater floor, formed in habitable surface environments. We have not found any strong evidence for fossils or organic matter in these carbonates, which I think just motivates the return of samples for analysis on Earth. And this is just material for long conversations, so fireside chats of potential implications. If we were to analyze these samples and find that Mars indeed contains some evidence of cells, this is just going back to our first question of origins, or whether life was present on other planets in the solar system. If inhabited, that would be great news, because it would tell us that either prebiotic processes or even cellular life existed elsewhere in the solar system. To this day, we don't know that yet. And if we were to find that in Jezero, samples seem to tell us that nothing organic was present or nothing living was present, I think this would open a whole new area of how we understand life spreads and really colonizes and infests a planet, and what keeps it from doing so on certain planets. So I'll end here, and thank you again for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Tanja. That was an absolutely fascinating talk. I think like many of you, I've learned an awful lot about what's been going on Mars in the last 5 years, as well as probably the last 4 billion years. So I'd like to open this up to questions. There are microphones, 2 microphones in each aisle, so if anybody has a question out there, please come to one of the microphones. I think, yeah.
Hey, I don't know. First, thank you very much for this very interesting talk. I wanted to ask a question. I don't know if it's a little bit stupid, but sandstones obviously form under pressure. And how were these sandstones exposed on Mars' surface with the lack of tectonic activity?
Oh, these sandstones, actually, the presence of hydrated minerals, and so they form at the surface, right? Okay. So there has been some erosion on Mars, but we think the fan, for example, wind will do it over billions of years. And we think of wind as a major agent, erosional agent on Mars. And we do think that the extent of the fan was much larger in the past. So some of that sand had been removed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. I would like to ask if you could give us more wrap-up about the current status of the sample retrieval campaign, given the current status of funding problems in the US and the beef between SpaceX and the government, and maybe if the European Space Agency can help out.
That is way above my pay grade, but what I will say is that the Perseverance rover mission, the team, we've done, I'm not patting ourselves on the back, but I think we've collected an amazing, really astounding set of samples. And they will be on the surface of Mars, there for the taking. So I think ideas are welcome.
Back to the easiest question, sort of. It was not clear for me if you have serpentine, because you showed us this reaction with the serpentine, and you were saying to us that there are some olivine that were safe and some carbonates. But is there serpentines in? It was observed the serpentine, because when you have the reaction of the olivine plus carbonate plus CO2, it goes really fast to carbonation, and sometimes it jumps the serpentine period. So maybe because you don't have serpentine, you don't have this kind of evolution that you want to, because you have the catalyzers of the phyllosilicates, maybe something like that.
Yeah, so that reaction was just really a general mechanism. So indeed, we do not see much serpentine. We do see clay minerals, and I think that all is, again, with more simple analysis, it's ripe for exploration with various models to understand the pressure, temperature, really it wouldn't be so much pressure, but temperature conditions and other chemical ingredients that were present that would drive the reactions. But certainly carbonates are there. So I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that. There are people who are doing, for example, Joel Hurwitz is doing some of that modeling.
Maybe the reaction of carbonation is very fast.
Yeah.
And because of this, you don't have possibility of life, catalyzers, things like that. I'm not sure about that, but I think about it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the rates, yeah. It seems like wherever olivine was there, but there couldn't, the fact that we are still finding olivine, even in these sedimentary deposits that were aqueously deposited, does tell us that it may have been fast, but there may not have been all that much of it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions out there? I think there's one.
I've noticed there's a PMC value. Is it standing for like percent modern carbon?
The PM
PMC value 164 in one of your slides. Is it percent modern carbon, the carbon 14 values?
Oh, we don't have isotopic values.
Okay.
We don't have isotopic.
I thought
We
you
don't have a
a
mass spectrometer. The mission is, unfortunately, well, we needed to keep the belly of the rover free for the samples, so we don't have a mass spec, and we don't have any isotopic values.
I see. Because I saw there's a PMC, and we use PMC as a percent modern carbon for the C14 value. Then I misunderstood.
Oh no, maybe
Yeah.
that must be a field-specific notation. I don't remember PMC, but I'll look at my slides.
Okay.
There's certainly no isotopic values that we have that we have produced with our rover payload.
Okay. Thanks.
Hello, thank you for the excellent talk. I'm very curious on the time frame for these measurements. So you showed that map and the scale bar was 2 kilometers and you were in
Which one?
Yeah, it was showing the different, yeah, that one right there. So you have the 2 kilometer scale bar and you said the rover was at certain positions for around like a year. This is a very naive question, but what contributes to that time scale if a rover is at one particular location for like around a year?
Oh, it's not so it's in an area for a year. So it took us a year to explore the crater floor. What determines that is, think about it as having a robot on the surface of Mars. And every single decision about the operation, Karim is laughing here because he's experienced it. Every single decision about any measurement to take, or even understanding what we are seeing or where to go, has to be pre-approved by various teams of people who know what they're doing, and then compounded with the need to communicate the results back to Earth, or to be limited by the data volumes just because of Mars being in conjunction with Earth. And so it is not instantaneous.
For sure.
And it does vary depending on the position of Mars and Earth and the communication satellites.
Excellent. Thank you.
I hope that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Are there any more questions? I'd just like to finish with one question, and again, it gets back a little bit to the logistics question. How much longer is it going to be out there? How much longer is it going to be driving around, picking up samples? Is that something we know already or have a plan for?
Okay. So based on the performance of Curiosity, we are limited by RTGs, our propulsion system, our power system. And so Curiosity has been going on for now 13 years, something like that. And so we know we can count on that lifetime. Now, different instruments and different components may have somewhat shorter lifetimes, but the rover itself could go on for quite a while.
Great, fantastic. Okay, I don't see anybody else with a burning question. Oh no, please go to the microphone.
Hi, thank you so much for the talk. So I have a question about if the mineralogy on the soil and the cores are very different.
If the chemistry, you mean?
No, mineralogy.
Oh, mineralogy of the soil. Yeah, the soil looks like in places where you have, for example, this olivine cumulate, you will see weathered olivine crystals, wind-eroded olivine crystals on the floor. But by and large, the soil is the global average Martian soil type.
Okay, so do we see...
So we don't see evidence of weathering really.
Oh, so when you say weathering, does that mean chemical weathering? So
any weathering.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, it seemed, there's still, first question from the right-hand side. Okay, fire away.
Yeah, thank you very much for your talk. How likely do you think it could be that initial hydrated carbonates, magnesium carbonates, could have dehydrated and transformed into the iron magnesium carbonates that you showed us right now?
You would have to, how easy? I think there are probably people here who could model that. I think the interesting question would be, where do the iron-rich fluids come from if you are to invoke such mechanism?
Okay.
I don't think, here is also, I did not go into that because it's in, we can find such minerals, so hydrated magnesium carbonates, even close to the surface of Mars in Jezero. They're not a major component by any stretch of imagination. And we do see other hydrated minerals. So I think the hydration and dehydration, the presence of these minerals at the surface tells us, or very close to the surface, tells us that Mars has been very cold and very inactive for a long time. We have sulfates that are hydrated. We've detected those. We have hydration in clay minerals. So I would be curious about mechanisms by which this kind of dehydration and exchange of magnesium for iron would happen.
Okay, so you have other hydrated minerals. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, well, thanks again to Tanja for an absolutely fascinating plenary. I think we'd like to just give her a round of applause again.